everyone. This is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership, and today I have something very special for you. Well, actually, two specials for you. Craig Sullivan with CLIC, a dear friend of mine. We go way back in the hospitality space, and we'll learn more about him and his experiences and what he's been doing over the last several years. And Dani Leffler, a young woman that I was fortunate to meet through Craig, as she's the producer of Craig's podcast, CLIC, and we'll find out more about her in just a second. But before we start, I want to give you a big thank you, a good hello from the beautiful Denver, Colorado space. And Craig, I'm assuming you're in San Diego, or is it Hawaii or some Virgin Island today? Where are you?
No, I am on the island of Balboa in
Oh,
Newport Beach. So,
beautiful.
aloha from the Golden State.
And Dani, where do we find you today?
I am in good old Boise, Idaho.
Oh my gosh, I love Boise, Idaho. How'd you get so lucky to get there?
I was lucky enough to be born here. So, yeah, very, very lucky. I actually just got back from visiting Denver for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I loved it there too.
And yet my phone never rang when you were here.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. Oh, well, someday, Craig, I'll be on that list, right? That short Dani call list. But no, I'm just kidding you. I love Idaho. In fact, my beautiful bride, Tammy, and I are going up to Spokane in October, and I convinced her to let's spend some time in the Coeur d'Alene area, one of my beautiful spots. But with that, so Dani, I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what do you do? But more importantly, why do you do what you do? And I don't mean you have to defend wanting to work or needing to work with Craig Sullivan. That's a whole nother cup of tea. But tell us what you do and why you do it. And tell us more about your beautiful soul.
Yeah, I do a lot of things, as I feel like many millennials do as well. We kind of have gotten pushed into that category of finding multiple things that we love to do. But I was born and raised in Boise, and I went to school at Boise State and started off as a music major, and then realized that was not going to be my career path, and kind of fell into video and video production. And I've been doing that ever since I graduated. I've been lucky enough to, I've worked with multiple different companies, and that's kind of how I started working with Craig, which actually happened during the pandemic. I was living in San Diego at the time, and we had a mutual friend, and Craig was nice enough to say, "Hey, I've heard you do great things, and I kind of want to get this show off the ground." And so we kind of worked on that together, and now we've been working together for almost 2 years. It's going to be, which is great. And I love video. I love film. It's one of my biggest passions. I'm a huge passion person. I think anything that you do in life has to be a passion. Otherwise, why would you do it? So video is my big passion. And then I kind of got to use my passion for music in a different way. And I teach spin classes as well. That's my other big side passion that I love to do. And so I get to create playlists and get a community together and work out. And that's something that drives me every day as well.
Have you ever seen Craig Sullivan in one of your spin classes?
Oh, that would be so fun.
Hey,
I have taken one.
No, you're in great shape, Craig. All right, over to you, big man. Tell us. We all know Craig Sullivan of the hospitality space. We're very, very familiar with who you are in there. But tell us, why did you decide to put together such a beautiful show, bring in all these interesting guests, and have them tell the world their story? What's the why for you, Mr. Sullivan?
It's funny. We'd gotten the 5th annual California Lodging Investment Conference just under the wire before the planet caught on fire with COVID-19. The next week, in fact, everything was shut down. So, and as you know, Glenn Hausman from No Vacancy is family to me. And Glenn and I were talking every day. And I knew he was going in to do a live show every day with Anthony. And he was and I always refer to him as the voice of hospitality. And they were going to cut through the nonsense and the noise and produce a great show, which they've done. And I told him, I said, well, you know what? I gave up my podcast a while ago, just an Audible. show, and I was just going to sit back and see where everything was going. So I waited around for a couple of months, and then I decided, okay, I know what my internal voice is going to be on this now. And then I started doing the podcast, and I was having a lot of fun doing the show. But then it got boring. I missed seeing people. Plus, before Dani and I were working, I had two other shows that morphed out of one. One was called Check Out California, which is my road trip across California, celebrating hotels, travel, tourism, sports, and entertainment. As I like to refer to, I'm eating and drinking my way across the state.
Sounded fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a great gig if you can get it. I'm
Yeah.
hoping for PBS. So, and then we had the interview show, which started out as 3x10, 3 questions in 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And then we retitled that to CLIC Connect. That way you could also tie back into the conference. So my two partners that I had in the other show were both heading in two different directions. Quentin was moving up to the Seattle area to become a fireman. He was a working cameraman and editor. Andrew, Dani's friend, he was going to jump on a plane and move to Europe for a while. And he said, I've got this great person and blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me about it. I said, wait a minute. I know her uncle. I've known him for like 20 years at that point, 22 years. And we had
Unreal.
never met. And just this beautiful relationship started. We fired up CLIC Connect, and I show up and smile and nod, and Dani drives the bus, and we have a great show and a great time, and we just wrapped our 6th season. A little long-winded, sorry, but
No.
I'm Irish. I can't tell a short story.
No, but you had me with no BS, and I know you give a lot of credit to Glenn for that. But off camera, you and I were having a conversation, and unfortunately, there isn't much room for no BS. And I believe we need to take the no BS out of leadership. I think we need to take I believe we need to take the BS out of parenting. And I'm not anti-political, but I'm also saying there's too much coverage around what people want to say.
Yeah.
And when we do say it, we seem to irritate one half or 55% of the United States. And I guess my question to both of you is, if you were given a paintbrush and you could paint leadership, and Dani, I'm going to ask you this, and you use the word millennials, but in that 25 to 42 age group, and I know that's not millennial only, but I include all that because in that age group is, without a doubt, the future of all leadership around this country and the world, frankly. But especially for the United States, if you could paint a picture of what leadership looks like 5, 10, 15 years from now with people like yourself leading this country, what is it going to look like? That's a big question, I know.
Yeah, it is. I think it all centers around and comes back to acceptance. I think that's something that we are struggling with in many different capacities. And I really, really do have hope that the upcoming generations are a little more accepting, not of just, each other, but of all different kinds of backgrounds and everything that comes with that. I know even last night on the news, our local news, they were talking about how they're seeing younger generations are more accepting of talking about mental health and are, they're more willing to talk about their anxieties and things like that, which older generations necessarily, they maybe haven't been in the past. And I think that's where it all kind of stems from. There's so many different ways you can go with it, but I think the core of it is just kind of accepting each other, no matter your differences. I think that's kind of the root of it all.
And let me lean in a little bit here, Dani. When you say acceptance of all of our differences, are you saying backgrounds, skin color, gender, your sexual preferences? I mean, are you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you saying of who you are as a human being?
Yep. Of all of it.
Period.
Yeah. Period.
Right. It's amazing to me that we're, and I believe you. I believe acceptance, and as you're becoming accepting of someone, what must you let go of? What's
Um,
that ugly word we need to let go of before we can accept?
I mean, there's probably a specific one that you have in mind, but I see it as kind of maybe your own ego
Hmm.
and your own beliefs and thoughts,
I
and
didn't
realize
have
that,
that in
that's
mind,
not
but
the
it's
only way of,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a man that's been extremely arrogant and even been called the P word, prick. I know where I thought I was on top of the mountain and had a lot of where I was coming from judgment. I didn't know I was arrogant until I was told I was arrogant and found out I honestly was. But when I became more humble because I really worked on it, I became less judgmental. Was I accepting of everybody? Nope. Did it take me a long time to even understand why people were leading as a manager? Yeah. Craig, lean in here and share with us what Dani says. We need to become more accepting of one another from your ripe old age of whatever it is. What do you believe the secret sauce is? And I know there's not a pill, there's not a drink, but what do you really believe we need to do so we can get on the same freaking page with one another in this beautiful country?
And this is why I love working with Dani uh, and our mutual friends, because I got to tell you, a whole new doorway is open because I really enjoy working with millennials. Now, I'm going to turn 66 later this month. And throughout my entire career, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And like you, I've had ego problems in the past and kind of this Lord Sullivan move or get the F out of my way. I'm coming through. But I also remember, and Dani really taught me this lesson, and Andrew did. I remember being their age, and the older generation, the seasoned veteran at the time,
Yeah.
would tell me that I was lazy. I didn't want to do things because I worked differently than them. I processed things differently from them. And I started calling them psychopaths. And I think you've had that generational clash throughout the millennials. And that needs to end. I think you've got to look at whoever you're working with that they're bringing a specific skill set to the table along with an amazing personality.
Yep.
Okay. And you've got to be accepting, and you can't have this continual us versus them. And I look at things, I try to look through things like through Dani's eyes, my son's eyes, my grandson's eyes. And it just
Beautiful.
opens up a lot more possibilities. And I think there are three magic words: please, thank you.
Mm.
Use those all the time. And we don't do enough of that. So, if now I'm the tail end of the boomer generation, I've never felt that I fit in as a boomer throughout my entire life. Now, I think boomers take way too much credit
Yeah.
for just being lucky enough to be born a boomer. It wasn't us that did anything well. We had the opportunity somewhere between the Summer of Love and Miami Vice to really have an impact. I hate to use those pop terms, but it really defines it. Uh, we had the opportunity to do some really amazing things, and we didn't. The other thing I believe is like the sign: be creative.
Yeah.
I mean, that starts that's the beginning and the end of everything. I mean, Dani and I have some amazing conversations on where we're going to take the show each season. We're constantly changing it, upgrades, whether it's equipment or other things, and it's a partnership and it's fun.
Yeah.
I think you saw that a lot more this season. I think we got into a groove as a team. We had a better diversity of guests on. We got into some other subject matter. And, it's if you trust the younger generation, they're not going to let you down. They're not going to let you down like my generation did.
Well, you used a big word there, trust, and it coming up Thursday, August 11th is part 2 of my leadership development series. And we're bringing in a lot of really smart, important, insightful people, and building trust in culture is one of the topics. And the other word you used was diverse. And we're also speaking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And DEI is not a buzz acronym. It is incredibly important for this country and a lot of us to recognize that diversity doesn't just mean we need to hire people of different color. We need to have diverse ways of saying things and listening and bringing our own diverse ideas to the table. Equity is not that we need a certain a percentage of individuals and now we can check the box. That's bullcrap.
No.
And it's equitable for all who are invested in whatever organization or team you're in. And inclusion is simply that. Open your freaking eyes and look around and include the people that aren't like you and invite them. Now, those are my quick definitions, but I can't wait to hear the people we've asked to come to the conference and speak. But you also, we talked a little bit about your decision to partner with someone who has some very diverse ideas, just not only because of the significant age difference, but where she's from and the kind of ideas she brings. So Dani, when you hear someone compliment you on helping the show get diverse and have new ideas, fresh ideas, and be creative, how does that make you feel? And what are you feeling right now?
Oh, I mean, obviously it feels great to be involved in something like this, something that I honestly had no clue about before I got into it. I didn't know anything about the hospitality industry. And now here I am meeting so many leaders across the board and learning so much about it every single time we have a show. I mean, half the time I don't understand anything that they're talking about, but I learn a lot. And that's really, really exciting. So I feel really fortunate to be a part of it, but I also it's humbling as well. As I think it always should be. You know, I'm very grateful to work with Craig, and Craig is always quick to sing praises, which is very, very nice. But I mean, he is also a huge, if not the bigger part of this, because it's his knowledge, it's his industry.
But
So yeah.
But his praise, Dani, is authentic. And
Yes.
that's what I love about Craig and the people that I have met through Craig. They are authentic, because you can praise someone as you're walking by their desk and not even mean it. You're just talking. Craig's got a heart of the leader that I admire, and that is someone who wants to be real and have real conversations. And I call that courageous conversations. By the way, you've mentioned 2 of my 5 principles, ironically, passion and humility. And I believe if we can be more humble because we want to, we'll be less arrogant. If we can be less arrogant, we'll be more accepting. If we can be more accepting, we can allow and include more people into our life. And I know it's not that simple, but as a 59-year-old getting soon turning 60, I have learned so much in the past year just by allowing myself to really be in a relationship that I never knew existed. And I'm talking about my wife, Tammy. We've been married a little over a year now. By the way, Craig, just an idea. You said you're turning 66 this year.
Yep.
And you know the most famous highway in the entire United States is Route
66. Yes.
And I'm
been on it as a child. Yeah.
And you could share a lot of stories going down that road, literally. But
yeah.
And I was born in Albuquerque, so I'm proud to say I was born near or on Route 66. So
there you go.
Craig, if you were a young industry leader coming into Marriott, Hilton, Red Roof, who cares? A big management company or just selling real estate, what would you say you would want them to learn about the industry specifically so that they could be a better leader in the industry itself?
It's funny that you asked that, because when the last publicly held company that I worked for, I came back to work. I took a year off, which could have been a disaster for anybody. Took a year off, hadn't had hard shoes on, let alone a tie on in a year. Showed up, my hair was down below my shoulders. I had a sort of a sports jacket on and some weird tie. The gentleman that I ended up working for, he had his admin type up a contract before our meeting was over. So I guess I did something right. So at the end of the year, I was literally bored out of my mind. And I was working a lot of different phases of commercial real estate. And then I started doing some little mom and pop motels, unflagged, a couple of flagged hotels. And it ignited something in me because really I was about ready to quit. I was thinking, you know what? I'd rather sell t-shirts from a kiosk at the Ala Moana shopping center and go surfing and diving than do this anymore. So I went home, wrote a business plan, wrote a mission statement, and handed those and all of my leads to my boss, which, as being a salesperson, you never do that because now you've got no value. Okay. Your golden ticket has now been handed over for public consumption within the company. So he took all that home and I trusted him, still do. He's been a mentor to me for many, many years. And he ran cover for me. He goes, "You're going to starve for about a year." I said, "Yep." And I'm financially set. Wasn't worried about it. He goes, "What do you need to do?" I said, "I need to jettison everything. I need to focus on hotels and I need to assemble a team." He goes, "Okay, I'll run cover for you." By the time corporate found out what we were doing, we were closing in on our second year and almost $1 billion in closing of hotel assets across the country. So the president of the company flies out and we're having this really nice dinner. And then she decides to look at me and she goes, "Don't think I don't know what you did." And I'm going, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she goes, "You created a whole department within this company that was not authorized." And I said, "Well, let me ask you something. Would you okay it if I would have, put everything together?" She goes, "No." I said, "Well, there's your answer."
Take
And
risk.
she goes, "What do you need now?" And I gave her a shopping list of things. And on that was, a private box at the Honda Center, at Dodger Stadium, and a couple of other things. And she just blew up. She goes, "I don't believe in sporting events." But I had assembled a team and really it became a model for other companies. And I ended up underwriting just like a bank would and closing nearly $25 billion worth of hotel transactions, nationally and international. Please and thank you. And I had the right team. It was the right point in time. I had 30 people. We had 2 meetings a year. Okay. Didn't waste people's time. But
Beautiful.
every time I set foot in the office, I said, "Hi, how are you? How's your family? How's your son? How's your daughter?" Blah, blah, blah. So I knew everybody. I'd always have lunch catered in like once a month and not just a pizza party. Okay. Do it right. Thanked everybody. It was us against the world, but we were a cohesive, fun unit. We had 2 meetings a year. One was give me a business plan. And then we're going to have individual talks, where we're going to go, what direction, what do you like, what don't you like, what do you want to accomplish? And the other one was our private internal Christmas party. And that was it. It was like everything else could either be in an email or a memo or, one-on-one conversation. But it was that personal connection to everybody that I think you need. And I think everybody longs for. And it's the respect. Because if somebody's got a problem on the team, everybody's got a problem. You've got to take, as much as I dislike sports metaphors,
Right.
but you've got to enact that. You've got to have that we are a team and we've got each other's back.
There's a lot to unpack there. And Dani, I'm going to ask you just one simple question. What did you hear? What did you hear Craig suggest? And phrases, words, because I want to also add into what I heard, but I believe there's so much there. If people are listening, he mentioned some incredible reasons why not only he was successful, but the team had fun. So go ahead. What did you hear?
I heard that I heard appreciation. he appreciated his employees and they appreciated him. And I mean, I was going to say when he was talking about, how they would have meetings and they all liked each other and he would come to the office. My first thought was like, oh, what a concept. Like, of course people want to work for people who are involved and actually care about them. I think the companies, the people that I've worked for that I liked the most were the ones that, we shared mutual appreciation of each other.
The initial thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you appreciating his appreciation. It's Appreciation Society. One thing I heard, and if you're young and listening to this, I want you to hear what Craig Sullivan said initially, though. It was he took a risk. He created an idea. He had an idea and he asked people to believe him. And in fact, he created something without even saying something to the people who might have shot it down because you know why? It wasn't their idea and it was new. It was innovative. I also heard beyond appreciation, teamwork. The other thing I heard from Craig was inclusion. And all the things that we want to do better today, Craig and his team created it years ago. So I ask you, Dani, why is it so tough for us to appreciate, recognize, include diverse ways of thinking? What's in our way?
Oh, I think a lot of time rules are in our way. I think a lot of times we get in our own way. I think that's probably the biggest one. A lot of times, I mean, we are our own worst critics. Yeah, there's a lot that I think. I mean, depending on different situations, but I would say most of the time, in my experience, it's always been things that I've done myself, things that I've kind of, or even the way of thinking about things that could even just change anything. Something happens that you don't like. Well, can you change the way that you think about it? Because if you can't change it, then you kind of have to change the way that you think about it.
You realize what a beautiful gift you gave the listeners, because a lot of people will start out by saying something about somebody else. And in my honest opinion, leadership starts with you. And if you're willing to accept who you are and how you can get better every single day, every week, with the way you think, the way you feel, the way you speak. And I believe that if we would look in the mirror more often and say, am I really being the best version of Dani? Is this the best Craig Sullivan can do today? And before you go and pollute everybody else with your bad attitude or your bad manners or your lateness or whatever it is, let's clean up our own shit first. And then say, hey, leader, would you help me with this? Because the way you speak to me or the way you don't include me or the way you don't listen to me is bothering me. Now, we blame millennials because they're antsy and they don't want to work hard and it's all about themselves. And frankly, I don't believe that. I believe the old guard hasn't really invited them to speak honestly. And if they don't like what they hear, just like when I was 22, I'm not going to work for an asshole, but I'm going to give them a chance, but I'm going to work my tail off first and prove myself. And I believe there's more millennials out there who want to work hard and do really great things for the organization, but they've got to be seen, heard, appreciated, valued, and understood. Mm-hmm. And I believe a lot of leaders in my era suck at really letting their ego go and inviting great new ideas. Craig, what do you say that? And we'll close it up with the last couple comments from you. But I believe we've opened up a beautiful conversation around who are we, what do we want from our leaders, and what will we do differently tomorrow? Craig, what say you?
Well, a few things. I mean, and there's a lot there, and I think Dani's right on. I think you are as well. But I think one of the other obstacles, and you and I will probably get a ton of hate mail for this, is HR, human resources. My opinion, not Greg's. I think HR managers are glorified bathroom monitors. They try and sell you a bill of goods that they're there for you. And come on, they're there to collectively protect the corporate ass. That's it. You've put somebody into a job that is unnatural for a human being. Okay. They cannot have relationships. They cannot be fun. They have to be isolated from everybody else. And that's why this neurosis through HR people runs rampant. And every 5 years, they're moving on to a new job because they cannot be around those people anymore. They always have to discipline them. They have to write them up. They have to hold them down. That's not the way to operate a company. And that was one of the reasons why I left publicly held corporate America. And, when Dani and I decided, after really, it was one phone call to put this show together and form this amazing relationship, that it was as much her decision as mine. Okay. And I think you've got to go into this going, okay, I'm feeling comfortable with you. Let me be a little bit more vulnerable. Okay. Let me listen to your opinions. And if I don't understand them, give me the latitude to question, and I'll give you the same thing.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I come up with some really dopey ideas on how to, do the show for the upcoming season. And, Danny would, no, that's just, we're not doing that. I go, okay, and I can tell by the look on her face that it was really a dopey idea. And, but we have gotten to the point, and it's a magical thing when it happens, and you need this with a team and a relationship, with friendships, all of that, where you can get to the point where you can finish each other's sentences and you're on the same page. In all the seasons that we've been doing the show, and it's been multiple, I think Dani came in and we started at season 3. And now we're getting ready to go into season 7. In all that time, there's only been one episode I've sent back for an additional cut or edit. That's it. Okay.
Very trusting.
Right on target on everything. I send her samples of music. Okay. And I said, this is what I want. Okay. I want a driving rock song to open and close every episode. And she gives me a dozen choices. I narrow it down to 3. I send those 3 to Dani. I get her comments, what she likes, doesn't like. Some song. I rejected one song because I was being politically correct. Me, okay, because of the title of the song. And I went, nope, can't use that one.
Hey, Craig, I got to interrupt because what you're saying is beautiful, and I just want to interject this. And you say a couple times you said you have to, and what I hear is a man that gets to. You get to work with Dani. Dani gets to work with you, and I say that not from a privilege standpoint, but for a choice. You choose to have a loving, trusting relationship with another wonderful human being, and those that are listening, I want you to ask yourself, what are you doing that you say you have to do versus what are you doing that you get to do? And again, it's for me, I'm not a word Nazi, but I believe in the world of distinctions. And when we need to do something, we'd show up differently than when we want to do something. I don't need to love my son. I don't need to love Tammy. I don't need to love anyone. I want to. And when I show up that way, I have love in my eyes, love in my heart, and I come across as the person most people see and go, wow, I'd like to spend more time with this dude. So Dani, close us up. Tell us what's in your heart right now. And then I'd like you to share with the Gregs and the Craigs of the world, and just look into our eyes and say, please do more of this and less of that, so that we, your group, can thrive.
So much. This has just been wonderful. And I love hearing both of your inputs. And I think there's some truth to it, but I think sometimes you can be a little hard on yourselves and on your generation as well. I would say it all just comes down to communication. I mean, Craig mentioned earlier being vulnerable, and I think that's huge. I think that's something that every generation struggles with in some way or another. So I think just being able to be vulnerable, be trusting, and be open and communicating, the things that you like, dislike, the things that you need, you want, that's going to go a long way.
Amen. And if you haven't heard of Brene Brown by now, whether you're 22 or 62, please follow Brene Brown. She is the most beautiful human being relative to vulnerability, but she also tells us, regardless of age, regardless of sex and political belief, that when you are vulnerable, you're also more powerful, you're more courageous. Yeah. And she's done a beautiful job of marrying vulnerability and courage together, and it has helped so many relationships. Greg, thank you. I cherish our relationship, and I've always felt comfortable speaking with you. And part of it is you've recognized me over the years as more than just a hospitality dude that made a lot of money for other people and myself and blah, blah, blah. And we've grown together these last 8 years after I left IHG, and you've introduced me to a lot of wonderful people. And I have to say, no more wonderful than the person that you brought into my world, Dani Leffler. Thank you for joining us as well.
She's the best.
Dani, coming.
It's called Noka Oi, which is the best. So.
That's a hell of a compliment, Dani. And I tell you, I want to reflect back to you too. Is when you said, and it starts with you. You also mentioned maybe we're being hard on ourselves. So I hope you understand the unique spirit from which you speak and from where you're coming from. And I'm going to go out on a wide limb here and say, I can imagine that your parents did a really, really wonderful job, not making you who you are because you've made all those choices, but allowing you to be the person you are today. Am I close?
Oh my gosh, of course. Of course. Yeah. Right on.
Parenting and leadership are two of the most critical opportunities for us to serve, and not make them, but serve them as human beings. And I hope we pull our heads out of our ass sooner than later and realize all that. And I'm not on a crusade because I know I'm right. I've heard thousands of people agree with me. And if we don't start parenting in a way that allows people to be who they are, God bless us all. But anyway, coming live to you from Denver, this is Greg Aden, Dani Leffler from the beautiful area of Boise State. Craig, thank you coming live from whatever island you are, Balboa, I believe. And I just love you, brother. I really respect the hell out of you and appreciate what you and Dani are doing. And keep it up.
Hey, it's all her. I'm telling you, she drives the bus. Without her, I don't have a show. She's just the best. And yeah, my brother, thank you. Love you guys. Yeah. Been a lot of fun. Thank you for having us, Greg.
I want to shout out to somebody who I invited into my life into IHG, Lori Gardner, who's suffering as we speak with cancer. And Lori, if you're out there, know that I love you. We are all wishing you the best. And as many days as you have left on this earth, please know that you have brought so much joy and love and happiness to many, many, many people. And love you, sister. Anyway, God bless everybody out there. Please become a better parent, a better man, a better woman, a better whatever you are, and lead with your heart. Again, this is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership. Thank you for chiming in. God bless.